if a man is in a position where it is normal for him to focus on his mother's needs and to be there for her, he probably won't even realize that he is neglecting his own life and his own needs, because this will just be how he is. And most likely he will have been this way for a very long time. And so in order for his life to change, most likely he will need someone or something to take place that will allow him to wake up. And this could be a relationship, or it could be a breakdown. And if he was to get into a relationship, his partner, through being on the outside, will be able to see that he is neglecting himself and that he's too focused on his mother and that he is ultimately out of balance. And if his partner was to speak to him about what has taken place in the beginning, he could deny what she has said, and he could end up accusing her of being needy or selfish or as having something against his mother. But as time goes on, he may be able to accept that he is living in the wrong way. And if he was able to accept this, and this could take a number of months, if not longer, he could find that when he thinks about living his own life, let alone actually living his own life, he experiences a fair amount of guilt and shame, and he could experience fear and anxiety. And so at this point, it may seem as though he has no control over his life, because he will want to do one thing, but at an emotional level, he will have the need to do something else. And so he can find that his intellect, what he wants on one level, ends up being dominated by what has taken place at another level, the level of his emotional self. And so his thoughts and his feelings will not be in alignment. His emotional self will not be providing him with the support that he needs to change his life. And at this point, he may believe that he needs to basically get rid of his emotional self in order to live his own life. Because until this takes place, his emotional self will be like a massive wave, and his intellect will be like a candle that is completely snuffed out by this wave. And so at this point, it will be clear that until his emotional self is on board with his intellectual self, until his thoughts match up with his feelings, until they work together, his life is not really going to change. Because at times he may be able to use his willpower, so force and effort, to behave how he wants, but most of the time his emotional self will simply be in control, and he will lose the ability to behave how he wants. And the reason why he will have this inner conflict is likely to be due to what took place during his early years. So during this stage of his life, his mother probably used him to meet some of her adult and unmet childhood needs. And if he expressed his needs, he probably would have been punished, disapproved of, and or abandoned. So it wouldn't have been safe, and he would have come to believe that there was something wrong with his needs, that his needs were bad. And so this would have stopped him from being able to stay in touch with his true self, his body, and he would have been forced to create a false self that would allow him to survive. And the main purpose of this false self was to focus on his mother's needs. And so not only won't he have received the nutrients that he needed to grow and develop, he would have also experienced a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. And many, many years will have passed since this stage of his life that he will still be in this emotionally undeveloped state, and he will carry most, if not all, of his trauma. And so in order for him to have the support of his emotional self, for this part of him to be on his side and to give him the strength that he needs to live his own life, he will need to work through the emotional wounds that he experienced and the trauma during his early years, because until he does this, this side of his being will continue to undermine him. And he can believe that he either ends up being undermined by this part of him, or he disconnects from it and ends up living up top. But if he does this, this is not going to allow him to really live his life. And so if you're a man and you can relate to this, you can see that your emotional self is undermining you, it's not allowing you to live your own life, then you may need to reach out for external support so that you can start to work through this emotional pain and to become a more integrated human being and to gradually resolve your inner conflict so you can live a life that is worth living. So please don't suffer in silence. To find out more about the services that I offer and how I can assist you on your journey, go to www.oliverjrcooper.co.uk or email me at info@oliverjrcooper.co.uk. I'm looking forward to assisting you on your journey.